It was the year 1879 when a 16-year-old lad set out from his father's farm to Detroit in a time when the only modes of transportation were railways and horse-drawn carriages, and when most people associated the first vehicles with wealthy individuals. When this young man founded a car company, it changed the path of the whole automobile industry. This is the story of Henry Ford, the farmer boy who would go on to become one of the wealthiest men in American history and whose name is synonymous with half of the world's automobiles. Henry Ford was born on July 30, 1863 on his father's farm in what is now Dearborn, Michigan. Henry was the eldest of 6 children and was expected to take over his father's business, a family farm where everyone lived and worked. However, unlike his father, Henry had no interest in the family business at all. He resented the thought of hard labor and becoming a farmer all his life. Indeed, the young boy has big ambitions and dreams. Henry Ford, like many of his peers, hated attending school and dropped out of high school before graduating. He was fascinated by mechanics from an early age and sought to learn on his own terms. In his quest to learn everything about machines, he studied everything he could get his hands on. After rigorous hours of practice and fiddling around, he was able to disassemble and reassemble simple machines and watches. It wasn't long before folks in the neighborhood started calling him to fix their watches. Henry's interest in mechanics took a turn for the better when he saw a steam engine for the first time during a school field trip to a Detroit manufacturing company when he was just 13 years old. When Henry was 15 years old, a terrible illness claimed the life of his mother, Mary Ford, and his life changed forever. Henry and his mother had a close relationship, and he was more in touch with her than anybody else on the farm. Henry's aversion to the farm grew as his grief over her death deepened, and the property became a source of constant reminders of his mother's death. Upon reaching the age of 16, Henry decided to leave the town in pursuit of a new beginning over the protest of his father. Due to the steam engine, Detroit was rapidly becoming an industrial center, and the city was in desperate need of fresh engineers. Henry's self-reinvention began in Detroit when he immersed himself in the world of machines and learned everything that he could. He accepted a position with the Michigan Car Company Works, a company that makes street cars. After barely 6 days on the job, Henry was fired. After a long time of being unemployed, Henry decided to use his hobby to make some extra money while he was looking for work as an apprentice at a machine shop. As a jeweler, working 6 hours per night and 6 days per week for $3 a week at night, he got work cleaning and repairing timepieces. Henry, while working multiple jobs to make ends meet, nonetheless found time to study and play with machinery. Henry Ford decided to return to Michigan in 1882 when he was 19 years old. He was still averse to farming, so he spent much of his time on the farm playing with and experimenting with the farm's machinery. Luckily for him, his father had recently purchased a portable steam engine, which had soon become a common practice among farmers. His father's farm neighbor hired Henry to operate his steam engine for $3 because of his skill with the machine, and Ford's reputation as a mechanical genius spread throughout Michigan. In Schenectady, New York, a Westinghouse Engine Company district agent heard of Henry's abilities and hired him. As a Westinghouse steam tractor engine technician, Henry traveled all throughout southern Michigan, installing and maintaining the machines. At a New Year's Eve celebration in 1885, Henry met Clara Jane Bryant, with whom he married in 1886. Henry's father had given him 40 acres of property as a wedding gift, but Henry had other plans for it. Henry and Clara went to Detroit, Michigan in 1891 and settled into a modest one-bedroom apartment. Henry first learned about the gas engine about this time when he came across an article in a British journal. A German engineer named Nicholas Otto developed a gas engine that was significantly more efficient and unique than steam engines. It didn't take long for Henry to fall in love with a gas engine, but the fact that it was driven by an electric spark made things even more confusing for him. Henry applied for a job as a night engineer at the Edison Illuminating Company at a pay of $40 a month so he could learn more about the new engine. Edmund Bryan Ford was born in 1893, and Henry Ford was appointed to the position of chief engineer, earning $100 a week. Henry made his first successful attempt at building a gas-powered carriage in the same year. On June 4, 1896, he first used the term quadricycle to describe an experimental gas-powered car. Two bicycles were bolted together to make the quadricycle, which used a gasoline engine for propulsion. However, the project presented its own set of challenges. Despite its two-gear layout, this prototype vehicle had no cooling system and could easily overheat when driven for any length of time. It also had no means of driving backward or forwards in any direction. Thanks to 11 investors, including a coal dealer from Detroit named Alexander Young Malcolmson, Henry's enterprise got off the ground. Originally called Ford and Malcolmson Limited, the company changed its name to Ford Motor Company in 1902 after being incorporated. He was determined to succeed after two failed tries. The automobile was a luxury at the time that was only afforded to those with money. Therefore, Ford set out to create an automobile that could be afforded by everyone. The new factory in Highland Park, Michigan was established in 1910 after Henry discovered he needed more space to make more than 100 models a day. When the assembly line was finally operational in 1913, it had undergone a series of tests. This made it possible to bring the work to the workers rather than having them move around the vehicle. The car was built step by step on a conveyor belt, and the new procedure shaved 12 hours off the production schedule. Henry clung to his belief that the Model T was the ideal car for the majority of people, despite the rising popularity of more expensive but no less desirable automobiles like the Chevrolet Corvette. When other Ford executives or even his own son Edsel told him that it was time for a new model, he refused to listen. Henry finally decided to shut down a Model T assembly line and start constructing a new automobile in the late 1920s, since he could no longer ignore the dropping sales data. By 1936, Ford Motors had fallen to third place in the US market, behind General Motors and the Chrysler Corporation, despite having been the world's largest producer of steel, glass tires, and other components used in the construction of automobiles. Henry's son died of stomach cancer in 1943. Therefore, he continued to handle the business for another 2 years before handing over authority to Henry II, Henry's grandson. Henry died of a brain hemorrhage on April 7, 1947, after retiring to his estate. Ford Motor Company currently has a market capitalization of over $70 billion and is one of the world's largest automobile manufacturers. And this wraps up today's video. If you want to learn more interesting stories about the world's most successful billionaire started from scratch, then give us a like, subscribe, and ring the bell icon to stay on top of our videos. We hope to see you again soon, Crunchers!